Right now. Hello, Internet. How are you?
Hello. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for pre-webcast banter.
Yep. So I'm still not convinced that this is a good idea. What we're about to embark on.
Well, this morning I changed my shell and I realized I had the wrong syntax for the change shell command, and so I'm like, I could do this from PowerShell, right? And so I'm like $env:\user, and it's like, that's not set. And I'm like, oh, well, is it username? No. And I'm like, oh, well, and I Google it and it says, oh, it's user. And I'm like, oh, it's user, but only on Windows. You don't get that on other platforms. And I'm like, oh, my first experience is disappointment.
It's a portent for things to come.
I guess I could have looked at the ENV provider. Right.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I feel like this is really going to be the month of Mick and Josh doing an obscene amount of Google searches.
Yes, I feel like I have a lot of Google searches. Can I take screen share for a second, Mick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like
there you go.
This morning I was like, oh, it must be this, and it's like, oh no, it's not that. I'm like, oh, it must be. No, okay. So I guess what I should have done is this, because you can look at the
right,
and taking a look here, and it's like, oh, it's user. So what we're saying is case sensitive here.
That's one of the things that really is raw, in my opinion, about PowerShell is like 93% of the time, 96% of the time, case doesn't matter until it does.
Until it does, and then you're like, oh,
yeah,
okay, now I get it. All right, well,
yeah.
I mean, at least I could have found the solution on my own. I Googled it because, have it, but yeah. All right, I'll let you take that back there.
Yeah, lately I've been doing all kinds of dorky console hacks and stuff, and I shared with folks one of my favorite cruel tricks, which is doing random beep tones with PowerShell. So that's a thing. So so here, just a very simple loop where we were setting a random frequency, random duration, and then a random pause, and then you do console : beep. Now, this is a Windows feature. It should, or it can potentially work on other systems since PowerShell is now cross-platform, but you have to set up some of the providers that are needed for that. But the payoff, if you do it, is pretty hilarious. Okay, that's even annoying me. Like,
we were talking about this earlier, and I had mentioned how it reminds me of like how a smoke alarm is going off, like a battery low warning in your house, but you have no idea where it is, and you're looking all around and you absolutely can't find it. Like it's that kind of annoying where that's getting on my nerves, but it's just under the threshold of like making me do something about it at this very moment, right?
Well, if you really want to be obscenely cruel, you stretch out the duration between the pause between the notes, and then somebody's like, oh, what was that? And then like a minute, and then beep, just for a fraction of a second, they're like, what is going on?
Next time we're doing a physical assessment on a pen test, right? We'll maybe try to trigger some people. I feel like that could get me into trouble, but I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, I don't know. This will be a weird month, I think. I've actually got, for those of you who are saying that, I had a couple people DM me and say, oh, this will be easy because you're not actually going to be doing the real work this month. I actually have 2 on-site client gigs, and I'm going to hold to it. I'm going to stick with PowerShell, which I might regret.
Yeah. I have a bunch of recordings and things to do this month, so it should be very interesting.
Oh yeah, you've got all those post-process scripts.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff I got to convert.
Oh boy. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour, so we're at the official start time. So Josh, why don't you take it away and talk what this is about, and then I'll advance the slide to the intros after this.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Mick and I are so glad that you decided to join us on this journey that we are putting together here. And in today's session, we're going to kick off the month of PowerShell. This is going to be recorded, posted online. You have to blast early for whatever reason. You can always catch up, and then if you've got colleagues that you think would benefit from this as well, feel free to share this stuff afterwards as well. We can move on to the next slide here, Nick. So a quick introduction. I'm Josh Wright. Hello, that's me on the left, and my dog Daisy, who is rapidly wanting to lick my face because she hadn't seen me for 3 minutes. I am a faculty fellow at the SANS Institute. I'm a SANS author. And when I'm not teaching or writing for SANS, I work for a company called CounterHack, where we put on the Holiday Hack Challenge, and we do computer security consulting services.
Hey. Hi, everybody. My name's Mick, and that's my dog, Ladybug. So I was just sitting on my couch right back here in my office, hacking away, and that was her begging for food. So just snapped a shot of that, and Ladybug, the internet says hi to you. So at SANS, I'm a principal instructor. I actually teach 2 different courses. I teach 504, which Josh is the author of. And then I also teach 555, which is a SIM and data analytics class. So I do both offense and defense. I also am a member of the INS research faculty, where I help consult on different largely like defensive orchestration and cloud orchestration issues. And then for my day job, I am the founder and principal manager of InfoSec Innovations. We're a boutique security consultancy where we do like crazy cool defense, and we do a certain amount of offense too.
All right. So we're here to talk about what we're kicking off is the month of PowerShell. And I thought it would be helpful to take a step back and kind of talk about PowerShell's evolution. PowerShell has been around since 2016. That was the initial release of PowerShell. And in 2007, it shipped with Windows 7 and Windows 2008. And if you look back, I think a lot of people would say that the PowerShell today is very, very different from the PowerShell of way back in 2007. PowerShell became serious when Microsoft backported it for Windows XP and Windows 2003. And I think that was a big tell where Microsoft is saying, this isn't some little feature that we're adding. No, this is important enough that we're backporting it into other platforms as well. But I think when a lot of people really took notice is when in 2015, Microsoft shipped Windows 10 with PowerShell 5.1. And it fixed a lot of annoying things about PowerShell. It introduced a lot of, I think, really needed features in PowerShell, and it really brought it into the limelight. Now, One, maybe less noticeable thing, but I think very important for our consideration, is that in 2016, Microsoft open sourced PowerShell. And it went from Windows PowerShell to Microsoft PowerShell, kind of embodying that this is not just a Windows thing anymore. This is full platform, cross stack, a mechanism that we can use this for scripting, for interactive environments, for programming, and for interrogating and working with data. Now, in 2020, one other big thing is that Microsoft integrated PowerShell 7.2 with Windows Update. And I think that's a really telling thing as well. Microsoft is saying that we believe PowerShell is important enough that we don't want just to have big updates. We don't want that to be separate. We want this to be an integral part of the operating system of everybody's experience using this platform. And we're going to use this to continue rolling out updates just like any other operating systems components get updates. It's not just an app that's separate. It is part of the operating system in Windows now too. There was a really telling quote too. I got this from the Wikipedia page on PowerShell. We could go to the next one there. Microsoft cited PowerShell as, quote, the single most important skill a Windows administrator will need in the coming years. And that was back in 2009. And I think that is really very true. I think PowerShell is this amazing tool that has a lot of opportunity for good and for bad, right? We'll talk about how PowerShell has gotten some bad rap over the years as well. But I think, looking back on this quote, it's not just an important skill for Windows administrators, but for anybody who is working with different platforms where PowerShell can be beneficial. A lot of the time that will mean Windows, but I think it can have some opportunity as well here in other platforms. We can move forward here.
So one of the things that we wanted to chat with a little bit is a couple things. Josh and I aren't Microsoft MVPs. So we are, we're not absolute rookies at PowerShell, but it is not our daily driver. It's not like our normal environment. And so what we're hoping to do is share with you certain frustrations or odd ahas that we have throughout this month. And one of I think actually it was a series of Slack messages where we were complaining or like troubleshooting and complaining and then laughing about different issues that we were encountering that made us like, this could be kind of a fun journey. And, there's a lot to like about PowerShell. I will be completely transparent on this. I am lazy. If you give me an easy path, I'm going to take it, right? That's just how I am. And so the idea of scripting things is incredibly compelling to me. And the thing that I really like about PowerShell is not only is it a scripting language, it also functions more as an API glue. And that kind of makes it a little different from other languages and other environments. And as a result, so yeah, somebody says not lazy, optimized. Well, whenever it came time for reviews, I always would say I'm efficient. The thing that it's I don't know, it's a very the name PowerShell is actually really apropos. It's incredibly powerful, but at the same time, it's got some really weird things. I want to talk a little bit about the missing data properties. Okay, this is one that I still don't quite understand why this is so bizarre. So if you do a git process, right, this will tell me all the processes on my machine. Now, if I do say git process name notepad, is it notepad.exe? Oh, I don't have any. Okay, let's try that again. Let's start Notepad up. There's Notepad. And now I can see, hey, here's my Notepad process. And, from a digital forensics, IR or even pen testing, it's really neat to know what the process ID is. But like, well, let's go find what the parent process ID is. So, it's not shown, but maybe I can get it to appear, right? So there's a thing that Josh is going to be posting in one of the very first blog postings that we're going to be doing about a thing called get member. And what get member allows you to do is to see the different properties and methods that are available to you. And so process ID, we want parent process ID. So we've got process name. But look, like this is all alphabetized. There is no parent process ID at all. So I had a student ask me this when I was teaching once, and they said, so how do you get the parent process ID? And I was like, oh, well, it's not there at all. And it took me a long time of fumbling around to find that you could do get sim instance class name win32 process. Oh, what is my, there we go, process. And now I can do get dash member. Whoops, not member. And now I have process ID and parent process ID, which, right, totally intuitive.
Get
Right?
sim instance is so crazy too, because it's just Windows, right? I don't know of any other platforms that implement the common information model required for that.
So that's an interesting conversation because Microsoft on all their documentation claims that it is a cross-vendor consortium, but I don't know anybody else who's implemented the SIM, and specifically the SIM 2 that Microsoft has moved to. So I don't know, it's going to be a weird thing. And I will have a blog posting probably toward the middle of the month about how to explore the SIM space because it is massive. It is, I can't overstate how large the sim space is. And it's crazy. So like, right, like there's like lots of little weird things within PowerShell that just strike me as like, what, why, what's going on? Earlier, it wasn't recorded. Josh ran into a thing where he was showing that case sensitivity sometimes is an issue. Like the syntax in PowerShell it's odd, like PowerShell devs don't take personal offense to it, but it feels weird. One thing we're going to be talking a lot throughout the month about PowerShell as an attacker platform. There's some people who are operating under the model that PowerShell is still a vulnerability and that it should be avoided. And I can't, like with love and kindness coming from me, you have to jettison that thought pattern. That is, you cannot computer without PowerShell, especially in a Windows environment. Now, that said, I'll raise my hand and say, hey, I know that, I know that attackers use it. And I know that because during that Exchange attack that happened about a year and a half ago, if you had an on-prem Exchange server, they might have been attacking you, the Hafnium group. One of my PowerShell scripts that I wrote years and years ago was used during the attack lifecycle. So it's just, I don't know, it's a weird mix. I don't know, like Josh, do you have anything else to add other than it's weird, it's frustrating, it's fun,
I think it is exciting, and I think Mick and I both have this, like, Mick would say it scratches an itch. I know I can solve this problem with PowerShell, but it may take me a long time to find the answer to that question. And I think that, it does give you a sense of satisfaction when you get the answer and you're like, yeah, self high five, like that felt amazing. But it, can be very frustrating trying to find that path too.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're going to be doing is actually sharing with you as much as we can so that we can flatten that frustration level for you. So let's talk a little bit about like why PowerShell is so compelling and so strange. And part of the reason that I find PowerShell so interesting is, when you think PowerShell, a lot of people think PowerShell.exe. That's not it. PowerShell is actually on a Windows machine, it's a collection of DLLs. And shout out to Ben 10. Hey, Ben. Years ago, he made a thing called Awesome Shell, where he actually deleted PowerShell.exe from a Windows machine, and he had his own shell called Awesome Shell. He ran it, showed that it didn't have the PowerShell commandlet set. Then he imported the DLLs to Awesome Shell, and then all of a sudden had the full PowerShell. So it's like really weird. It's not PowerShell is not this terminal thing, although that's part of it. So it's like we've got this weird thing that kind of crosses some of the boundaries. Like PowerShell is more than just the terminal. The other thing is, and I want to be clear, deservedly so, in the early days of PowerShell, there were a lot of security concerns. Big shout out to WinFang and Relic, or Hacking Dave as he goes by now. They were the first to show using some of the features built into PowerShell to bypass all AV at DEF CON years and years ago. And if you're running a legacy version of PowerShell, friends don't let friends do that. In fact, you actually should remove any legacy versions of PowerShell that are existent on your systems, because with PowerShell 5, it is amazing in terms of the level of visibility and the granular control that you get. And that's a precursor to a blog posting that I'll be doing toward the very end of the month, as the weeks and months go on, we're going to be building to a where do we go from here kind of an approach. The one thing that I find odd about PowerShell, though, more than anything else, is how it interacts with the data. Is so here's something that's bonkers that I still just find really bizarre. Is I can do CD to hardware key local machine, and now I'm in the registry, and certain registry requests are denied because I'm not running as admin, I'm not running as an elevated account. But for other things, so I could CD in the system and do another get child item, and there's what this, it's cool, but what? So there's a lot of this kind of for lack of a better term, just exploration that I love. It's confusing, it's weird, it's frustrating, but damn, it's been a long time in computing since I've had that sense of wonderment and exploration, and that's one of the things that I find super compelling and addictive about PowerShell. So I guess, what we're going to be trying to do here is just throw down the gauntlet. Can we replace PowerShell, use PowerShell in place of our other shells? And for Josh and I, we're going to give it a go. My daily driver is a Debian box. Now I'm presenting from a Windows one, but my daily system is Debian, and I've always had PowerShell there because it's handy to do in certain use cases, but to live in it, I don't know.
So we had a conversation. This is a reenactment of that conversation a while back, where we were talking about PowerShell. We're kind of griping about PowerShell, but at the same time, we're not worthy, right? And it occurred to me that it's time to really embrace this, right? I have worked on PowerShell projects. I've written some PowerShell code. I can solve problems, but it's not my go-to. I do not turn to it when I need to solve a problem. I use Mac as my daily driver. So Bash or CSH is what I spend most of my time in. And it seemed like there was an opportunity here. So I asked Mick, what if we did this for a month? What if we just said, all right, we know it's going to be a struggle. We know it's going to be difficult, but what if we just throw down and like for a month, change our shells and then, not use our normal environments. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? And my memory is just this stream of exploding head emojis from Mick. And this is pretty much how we're expecting it to go. Jim asks, isn't Linux or Mac PowerShell different from Windows PowerShell? Yes. In providers, definitely. In syntax, not really too different, but this is one of the things that I think we need to learn about, right? This morning before we got started, I was trying to figure out what my username is in PowerShell, and I realized, environment variables in PowerShell are case sensitive on Mac, but not on Windows. And so there are certainly going to be some differences there. But I think by kind of forcing our hand at this would be a learning opportunity for us. And we're going to say, all right, we're going to commit to this. July is PowerShell month. I got up this morning, I changed my shell, and then I started to struggle, this morning already. So fortunately, it's a Friday because I feel like I can catch up over the weekend. And then when I have to really work on Monday, hopefully I'll be a little more prepared than what I was today. I don't know.
There is one thing I want to touch on though. So the PWSH, what that's referring to is the modern cross-platform PowerShell. So that is different, and that's the version 7 series and going up. Windows PowerShell is the Windows PowerShell, and that's PowerShell v5 family. So there are slight differences, but the similarities are actually pretty hauntingly similar. And the main thing that I find, what I do, given, right, like sometimes I'll land on a machine that has PowerShell v2. A lot of times I find myself doing git host to get the host information. So just do this. So git -host, and that'll tell you which version of PowerShell you're running. But then I'll also do git command, and that'll let you know what commands and tools you have in your particular version. So awesome question.
We move on here. Yeah. So here's what the month of PowerShell is for us. We're committing to PowerShell for 30 days. As Mick mentioned, we are hackers using PowerShell. So we know there's going to be a struggle. We're going to have to figure this out. But it occurred to us that this is an opportunity not just for Mick and I to get better at PowerShell, to really dig into the details and to build our skill sets, but we think this could be valuable to help other people that are learning PowerShell, that are getting started with the community. I think that there's a lot of people struggle taking on new subjects. They think, people, have this air of expertise around them, and that is not what we're saying. We are not the experts here. So we think that in our learning process, there's an opportunity for us to give back to the community. We both love the computer security community, cybersecurity community. We love being able to share and give back. So that's what we want to do. And so the month of PowerShell is going to be us kind of learning things and sharing that knowledge, sharing what we learn on a couple of different ways, so that other people can also pick up on that and leverage that and help get improve and build new skills while we do it too. So we can move to the next slide here. Yeah, so the big question is, what's in it for you? Mick, you can take it away.
Right. Well, so what we're committing to is we're going to be doing at least one blog post a day for the entire month. We're going to be showing you how PowerShell can help make your day-to-day life easier, whatever that is. Whether it's incident response, so I've got this baselining script that I can't wait to share with you. Josh shared with me, he's got this really light touch baseline script that was fascinating at how fast it works. Certainly my behemoth baseliner would not be something like it's just crazy how like the same goal, we solved it so very differently. And one of the things that we're going to try as much as possible is share with you the struggle, share with you the like, hey, what's going on here? So if you're the type of person that's expecting us to like come down from a mountain with like, here's the text on how you do it, this is not going to be a great ride for you. But if you want to see how we think and puzzle through things, it's going to be fantastic. One of the things that I also like about PowerShell is that it's like any good tool, it can be used for both good and evil. And so we're going to be highlighting that and exploring that. You know, the difference between malware and software at this point is basically intent. And so some of the administration functions of PowerShell that people are shying away from, or they're doing it for very bad reasons. And we're going to highlight why you should be leaning forward on some of the things like PS sessions. For goodness sakes, that is one of the most amazing things, hands down. Like, I wish Microsoft was doing a better job of pushing those in the community, and I think you will fall in love with them too. So yeah, and I want to be clear, when we say advanced topics, we're putting that in air quotes. There will be some PowerShell gurus who will be like, oh, you sweet summer child. We're talking performance tuning for hackers. We're not going to be doing like, I know that there will be better ways of doing this. What we're going to be doing is just like, hey, can we make it go faster? This feels like it's long. Can we make it a little quicker, a little lighter touch on the CPU, that sort of thing. So don't think that, you know, we're coming from this mountaintop and like, this is how you PowerShell. In fact, I fully anticipate that we're going to get quite a few, what the heck are you doing, you chowderhead? And you know what? Let us know. Like, I would appreciate it if you didn't do name calling, but just any kind of feedback, because, right, like there's a lot of things that are flat out confusing. And, you know, I'll throw a gauntlet down to the PowerShell community. I find your coding standards to be a bit confusing, and there's conflicting versions of them in terms of how to write good PowerShell scripts. So it's kind of weird, and we're going to be exploring that stuff. We'll also be doing, you've noticed in the lead up to this, we've been a little more active on Twitter, specifically about PowerShell. So just get ready, you're going to have some more. Apparently Josh snuck in that I'm going to be doing stuff on LinkedIn, my favorite social media platform. Just kidding, LinkedIn, I love you. We'll also be doing some live streams. Be on the lookout for that. We're committing to doing a couple. I'm probably going to do some pop-up ones. They will be recorded. You don't, you know, if you can attend live, great. If you can't, that's also great, because we're going to record them and then you can jam in and hang out. And then we're going to have the wrap up webcast, easy for me to say. And that's where we're either going to be saying something like, hey, that wasn't too bad, or we're just going to be crying with joy. Randall trolling me so well. Yep, LinkedIn, gotta love it.
So if you're joining us and you're thinking, you know, this sounds good, then fantastic. And if you have feedback for us or questions, definitely drop them in the Zoom chat here. We'd love to be able to help answer anything, or, you know, share some thoughts on PowerShell, or if there's things that you've always wanted to know about PowerShell or things you've struggled with, we'd love that. We'd love to be able to take those, because if you're struggling with them, then chances are we're probably struggling with them, and then we'll figure it out, write it up, and try to present it in a useful way. But a couple of things that I do want to point out here. Mike F. Robbins wrote a PowerShell 101 book that Microsoft was gracious enough to take and publish on their website as well. So if you go to the docs.microsoft.com website or just Google Robbins PowerShell introduction, it's actually a good guide. If you send a couple of dollars to Mike Robbins, you could download it as an ebook as well. So if that's great for you, otherwise the web browser interface is good. And that's something definitely take a look at. If you're just getting started with PowerShell and a lot of the concepts are a little bit foreign still, that's a great kind of, let's build up some of my vocabulary and to know like what PowerShell is all about before you start trying to experiment. I am writing the articles so that you can use them as walkthroughs. Mick and I are authors, and you love the opportunity to be able to help people learn. So the articles are written in such a way where you can follow along, and we will give you an opportunity to be able to practice and to be able to struggle along, to make some mistakes, but also have some successes as well. So definitely take advantage of that. One thing I do want to mention though is that if you're working for an organization that is blocked PowerShell, then you probably don't want to go and start running PowerShell constantly if that's going to cause a problem for people. So if you're not sure, maybe talk to your colleagues, is it cool if I run these PowerShell commands? Nothing we're going to tell you to do is going to break anything or do anything dangerous. But just FYI about that. If you're concerned about that, maybe follow along on a personally owned machine, or if you have a virtual machine, or maybe you have an Azure account and want to run it in the cloud, fantastic, right? You could do that in all these different environments here, but I would definitely encourage you to practice along with us. Just reading an article is one thing, but if you really want to commit those concepts to long-term memory, definitely follow along with us. Randall shared the link in the chat here. Thanks, Randall. And our first article dropped this morning, 5 tips for getting started with PowerShell. I talked to a couple of colleagues at SANS, good friends, and I said, hey, what are some things you guys would want to learn about PowerShell? And these are professional hackers, right? They're brilliant people. And what they said to me was, PowerShell. We would like to learn PowerShell. So I wrote 5 tips for getting started with PowerShell, which I think will be a great kickstart for people that need to learn how to get started and work with this. And if you go to sansurl.com/month of PowerShell, all the subsequent articles are going to be linked there as well. So as each article gets published, make it a daily practice. 9 o'clock, you're getting started, you get your coffee, you're ready to go. Spend 15 minutes just checking that link, see the latest article of the day, and get your PowerShell skills really developed as we go through this whole month together. All right, I think that's it for me.
So let's get jamming, folks. There's the URL one last time, and feel free. We really can't stress enough that we're not quite making this up as we go along, but we are exploring as we go along. So any kind of feedback, any kind of tips, any kinds of hey, what are you even doing here? Let us know. There is zero ego on our end on this, because we know where we're at on the continuum of PowerShell ninjas. We're not. So we're just, having a go at it, and we're hacking on it and seeing how things work. And just really look forward to doing this journey together with you all.
Well said. Well said. All right. Well, there's no questions in the chat, so I think we'll probably end this nice and tidy. And then what we'll do is keep an eye out on Twitter, watch what's going on, and then you'll hear from us on a daily basis. Once we have a time picked out for live stream, we'll share that with you guys, and then expect to join us back in a month, and then we'll talk about what we've discovered in the month of PowerShell. Until that time, thank you, Mick. Thank you, Randall. Thank you, everybody, for joining here. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Canada Day for the Canadians.